And this first season is going to be offering 3 different lighter weight games, and I'll get into how each of those play in just a second here. But first I want to mention that this one is my own personal pick of the week. And I do have a couple reasons for that. First of all, I do think each of these games looks like a ton of fun, and I think they're really well designed and they're going to do a great job delivering the experience that they're going for. But the second thing is that this is just the type of thing that I love to see on Kickstarter. It's just a bunch of people getting new ideas and turning them into board games and doing the due diligence that they need to make sure that they're well play tested and that they are working on them to try and make them as fun as possible. I have already taken a look at their campaign page, and I think they did a fantastic job explaining how each of these games play, as well as offering them at very reasonable prices. And also, I just think the whole presentation and professionalism that they have with this page gives me a lot of trust in their ability to deliver and design good games. Dare I say, even more confidence than some of these bigger companies in the industry. But the 3 games being offered in this campaign are going to be Grachtenpand, Bable, and TimeZoo, and I'll just go through each of these, with the first one being Grachtenpand, which is a competitive set collection game, and I am normally not a huge fan of set collection, but this is actually the one that I'm most interested in because I think they did such a fantastic job with this, and it looks like a really fun game that I am really interested in backing. This is a game that involves card drafting, where players are going to be using their cards to build a sequence of buildings in a Dutch canal. Each of these buildings is going to be composed of a shop, some amount of floors for housing, and then capping it all off with a rooftop. Players can build their buildings of varying heights, and each of the cards can come in a variety of different colors, but each of the cards in the center of your building are going to have a number of items that you can score on. This could be cats, flowers, flags, or even the seagulls, and some of these items can actually detract from your score as well, depending on how you set your building up. But getting back to why I don't normally like set collection games is because it often just feels very random to me without a whole lot of choice or decision making. And this is a reason that I'm not a big fan of Sushi Go, because I feel like you're drafting cards, but your ability to score those cards depends on the decisions of the other players, but you don't actually know that decision until you've already drafted your cards, since you all simultaneously reveal, which to me just seems very, very random, and you're just given an illusion of choice at the start of the game, and then you're just trying to get cards that fulfill those scoring conditions that you're now locked into. But if one player happened to pick a card that no one else picked, then they have a lot more opportunity than the rest of you, so that game left my collection pretty quickly. But what I really love about the way that this game handles its set collection is that the storefront you choose, along with the rooftop you choose, are going to be determining the scoring for that building. This means that although you are still drafting, it's up to you to decide how you want to create those scoring opportunities. And you also have an opportunity at the end of building your building to add additional scoring parameters. Not only does this give you more flexibility and decisions with your set collection, but also all the cards that go into the center of your building are also all going to be useful to you in some way. You'll be able to put that card into any one of your buildings that you haven't put a rooftop on yet, which also introduces a bit of a push your luck mechanism of when you actually want to cap that off and score those victory points, because the end of the game is also triggered as soon as a player finishes their 4th building. So you do want to make these as tall as possible in order to score as much as you can, but you don't want to spend too much time there and let someone else end the game while you still haven't completed your buildings. Really love what I'm seeing with this one. I think this is a great example of a game that will appeal to both gamers as well as people new to board gaming. The second game offered in this campaign is called Bable, and this one is also one that I am very interested in because this is actually a cooperative game where players are trying to work together in order to build the Tower of Babel. The problem here is that each of the players are all speaking a different language, and this is going to be represented by the 4 cards that players have in their hand. Each of them are going to be associated with a different action. The different actions offered here are going to allow players to do different things, like draw additional resources into their hand, play those resources down into a shared pool, and then of course there is an action to use those resources in order to build one of the sections of the tower. The catch here is that each player is going to be taking turns as the foreman or the master builder, who's going to be directing the other players as to what they need to do. And in order to make them do a particular action, you need to say the appropriate word in their language that's associated with that action. This is going to incorporate a little bit of memory as you figure out the different words of the players, and if you happen to say the wrong word that might be associated with a different action, then you're going to get them to do something very different. But if you say something that is not on any of their cards, then they're not going to be able to do anything. But of course, languages are always changing and developing, and you're going to have to keep up with that, because after each player's turn, they're going to be drawing a new word card into their hand, and if that card already has an action that they already have on one of their other cards, then they're going to have to discard that older card, which means that players are always going to have to keep up with the different words that the players all understand and try and remember what those are, and hopefully try to forget the ones that are no longer relevant. If the players can successfully work together to build up the entire tower before that word deck runs out, then they win the game. And the last game offered in this campaign is called TimeZoo, and this one is also a competitive set collection game. This one's a little different than the first one because, well, it does play a lot differently, but it's also going to incorporate more of those take that elements. The way this game plays is that each player is going to have their own character card that's going to give them some special advantages, but then players are competing to lure dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures back into their zoo. On a turn, players will be able to draw additional food cards into their supply, or they can use those food cards to lure a particular animal, with each animal having a different diet or requirements that they need in order to be attracted to your zoo. Each of these cards can grant you with victory points or different scoring conditions that might require you to get more or other types of cards in order to combo those scoring potentials, but each of these cards could also grant you with some special abilities as well that you can use to help yourself or potentially hinder your opponents. Player with the most victory points at the end of the game wins the game, and if you're interested in any of these, definitely go ahead and check them out, and I'll have a link to their campaign in the description below, and you can get any or all of these games. And like I said, they are all offered at a very reasonable price, so I do recommend taking a look at what they have to offer.